It's been 5 years since I did my very first Sonic movie review. And frankly, I feel like I need to give more insight about what I thought about the original Sonic movie, but also the other ones, the new ones. So in today's video, welcome to my ranking of every single Sonic movie from the first to the second to the third. Let's do it.
Everywhere we go, I think you know this ain't no one.
Alright, so starting off the first ranking, Sonic 1.
Take my breath.
My thoughts about the original movie have changed since I actually recently watched the first along with the second film. Sonic the Hedgehog has to move to Earth after basically his village gets invaded, but then meets James Marsden's Donut Lord, which clearly, I mean, yes, or Tom. Jesus Christ, I'm just looking at my iPad and I'm like, what do I do to reference this in so many different ways? Sonic unfortunately gets seen by an unfortunate stance of Dr. Robotnik and basically goes to the point to where literally James Marsden's character and Ben Schwartz's character has to go down to actually making it to San Francisco thanks to Marsden's actions of making Sonic lose his rings after shooting him with a harpoon gun. Oh yeah, it's the tranquilizer, I forgot. Tom and Sonic have to go to San Francisco to get the rings back while not getting followed by Dr. Robotnik, which is unfortunately inevitable. And I mean, the storyline itself is good. It's not too bad. You can follow it along pretty easily. There's the CGI is okay. It's better CGI than what most Avengers projects are basically nowadays. I'll give it that much. What do I think of Sonic 1? Like, there are some things about Sonic 1 which, I mean, they do pretty well, but then there's also some things which are kind of, they don't age as nice, like the flossing and some of the references. One thing which I will give it credit for is the fact that Keanu Reeves was unknowingly shadowed.
Movie night is my favorite. Please, 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 please. Yes, Keanu! You are a national treasure.
Sonic 1 gets a decent between A and B tier because personally I find it was one of those films which I at the time really liked. And actually rewatching it again, I can understand why. It was really enjoyable, but it's not perfect, and clearly the sequel did this better, as we'll talk about Sonic 2.
I just got goosebumps. Wait a second, did you steal that from Oprah?
Oh man, Sonic 2 surprised me at the time, and I almost saw it in IMAX. I wish I did. The iPad is also a choice, by the way. I'm not doing this because I have to, I just want to.
Guess what? That old iPad I used to use back in the day, I freaking destroyed that shit.
I will say without a doubt, Sonic 2, the stance is basically Robotnik's back, but there's also Tails and Knuckles in the play. Tails being on Sonic's side, Knuckles clearly being on Robotnik's side. Basically coming down, both getting to the hunting point to basically get down to finding the Mastered Emerald, which, yes, it's crazy to think how the Sonic movie 1 came from this point to this point, but you know, I thought Sonic 2 was actually, like, again, some of the terrible references like the flossing. Sonic 2 was a very nice film with the CGI. I forgot to talk about the CGI about the first one. It's good too. Sonic 2, like, the storyline makes a lot of sense. Also, the characters going in together and that stuff, especially towards the end, which if any of you haven't seen it, then why are you watching this video? I just like the stance of how this movie is structured. Like, it's kind of structured in the sense of like clearly you got Tails learning from Sonic and Knuckles learning from Robotnik, but then entirely just getting betrayed by Robotnik. There's a lot of stances that are combined in this entire story of the second movie, and I like that. It's that thing of like, there are certain vibes to me that just hits right. Some of the parts of the CGI that were included in the films, especially the build up. I love how I'm just looking down and I just see this James Marsden scene and that stuff. Alright, I guess I can close up the iPad for that one. The big build up CGI is not the best. It's kind of a okay bit, but it's not the best out of all of it. Roughly, I would give Sonic 2 a 9. I'd give it a 9 out of 10, which basically means it's full-blown A tier. Going against up the Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, it does definitely add up. And also for the fact that the ending for Sonic 2 basically foreshadowed Sonic, which, I mean, I don't know if I'm spoiling too much for each film or if people are getting bothered that I'm spoiling some of the films. But let's talk about Sonic 3.
You're a colorful bunch.
This movie surprised me when I heard that Keanu Reeves would be playing the role of Shadow. Holy shit! I'm very surprised that he actually got Keanu Reeves into this movie. Like, to me, it was so hard for me to believe that Shadow was not only going to be played by Keanu Reeves, but also Keanu Reeves existing in the same universe.
Keanu! You are a national treasure.
I mean, Shadow was clearly pissed when he finally realized that 50 years later that he was basically stuck in a coma for so long. Realizing that his trauma with Maria and also Gun in general was not the best, but going down to basically Shadow is basically against Sonic and everyone else because of his trauma and basically is suffering with that big, it's hard to explain. Sonic and Friends, not just Sonic and Friends, but also Robotnik, and this is where I feel like the story starts to get a bit much because you got Tails, Knuckles, and Sonic, but then you also got Stone and Dr. Robotnik, but then also you got Shadow and Robotnik's grandfather, or there's a lot of plots in this movie where it's like there's so much involved with it, which I get it, but also in the sense of like certain aspects, it's like this feels like a lot of characters to go down, and then you also have like Tom and Pretzel Lady, which I think I forgot her name already, which I'm not happy of. Just this entire plot of forming all of these plots together, and then the main conclusion coming down towards the end of the movie, which some of the characters were not that important anyway, like the grandfather, because circumstances just kind of prove he wasn't. I don't know what to call him now. Dead corpse? I think the one thing which I do personally find surprising is basically the ending where, I don't know if I should say this, which if you don't want to hear this, skip to this timeline. They basically spoiled that, they basically gave off the advance that basically Amy was going to be involved in the fourth movie, and also for the fact that the fourth movie was also going to be some form of a romance, comedy romance movie, which I'm wondering how they will do that, especially with like how all the film is. I don't know how this entire film's gonna add up, but going back to Sonic 3, it's still a good movie, but like if you were young and you didn't understand like a lot of the plot points and that stuff, then you're probably not gonna really know. It's a lot to take in. But I think some of the stuff which I do really like against what was like the couple of films, the fourth wall break from Jim Carrey. CGI is pretty good in this one too. I think personally though, this story was a bit much in this one, but I still really did like it. Like I enjoyed Sonic 3. Just not as much as the second one. It's a little bit, it's not as, I'm not gonna say it's not as good. It's great. It's a great film when it comes down to going to the first, second, and then the third. It's just, it all gets better over time, but then the story was a bit much for me. So I'd probably just give this at least a very decent 8 here. Since like, I thought that like, honestly, Keanu Reeves was actually, I'm gonna throw it a little bit higher. It's actually gonna be more of a 9.2 or 9.3 because Keanu Reeves being in the film. I did like all of the films. Like I did really like all of the films. It took me a while to actually kind of just, it took a lot to be able to go from watching the first to the second to the third film, since, I mean, watching the first and the second film, re-watching those, that was fun. I liked that. I like both of the films. And like, I'm excited for the fourth one. I'm excited to see how the fourth one is, but it also really depends on what exactly is gonna happen with the fourth one, because it could be either it's gonna be a success or it could be, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So I'm gonna say thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was this was something which I was thinking about, and I was like, I wasn't sure if I really should make it, because I wanted to talk about the Sonic movies again, but I didn't know how to in the fullest sense. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later when I finally whip this little guy out into the world. Bye!